Welcome back, guys. How you doing? Hopefully, you guys had an amazing day. We haven't seen each other since yesterday. Well, it's been a pleasure already. It's been amazing. Really good feedback already. I talked to my little sister earlier. Shout out to my sister Shirley Acosta Baez. Oh no, yeah, Baez. So it's been such an amazing time reading with you guys. So today we're going to continue Failing Forward by John Maxwell. That's the book we're reading. Again, it's been a pleasure already. Really good feedback. So I'm loving it. Hopefully we can continue to build a few items before we get started today. As a reminder, I am a financial coach. If you need anything when it comes to financial services, please reach out to me 512 797 1442. My information is in the description, and you should have seen my phone number and my email right at the beginning of our broadcast. With that being said, I would love to also get people involved. If you want to participate with us, please reach out to me. Again, same information. We have a Zoom feed so we can bring people in if you want to join us. You'll be able to read and just have an interaction with me with a book. All right, so let's recap a little bit about what we have learned so far. So yesterday we read a few pages and they were focused on the first part of the chapter of chapter 1, and we looked at what's the main difference between people who achieve and people who are average. And he went into different aspects of that, what that means as far as practicality. Now, as we remember, there was a few items that separate achievers from people that are failing backwards. A few items, for example, repeating the same mistake, uh, people that expect never to fail again, accepting traditions. We looked at being limited in the from past mistakes, thinking that they are a failure and quitting on themselves. But we also seen the opposite. People that do fail forward, they have some characteristics, and some of them are like taking responsibility for their actions, learning from their mistakes, knowing failure is part of the progress. We looked at that a little bit. Challenging outdated assumptions. We touched on that a little bit as well. Taking risks. Everything's a risk. So might as well take the steps to get good at something. Sometimes we are going to fail, but like the book says, fail forward. And believe sometimes believing something didn't work, that doesn't mean that it's not going to work. And of course, perseverance, right? We looked at that as well. So, what are we going to be looking at today? We're going to continue to read chapter 1. And the topic of this part of the book is going to be redefining failure and success. Get a new definition of failure and success. Sorry, it's not chapter 1, it's actually chapter 2. So let's look into what that means, and let's read it with let's read and see what new insight we can get from John Maxwell. Once again, there's not really time restrictions. We're going to be here probably around 30-35 minutes, and then we'll give our thoughts, and we'll see each other possibly. Tomorrow is Friday, so God willing, uh, we'll see each other next week. Tomorrow we're not gonna have this session due to the fact that I do some other trainings. So let's get into the book. All right, get a new definition of failure and success. The difference between greatness and mediocrity is often how an individual views a mistake. Nelson Boswell. On August 6, 1999, a Major League Baseball player stepped up to the home plate in Montreal and made another out, the 5,113th of his professional career. That's a lot of trips to the batter's box without a hit. If a player made all of those outs consecutively, and he averaged four at bats per game, he will play 8 seasons, 1,278 games straight without ever reaching first base. Was was the player discouraged that night? No. Did he think he would have failed himself or his team? No. You see, earlier in the same game, in his first plate appearance, that player had reached a milestone that only 21 other people in the history of baseball have ever achieved. He had made his third 3,000th hit. That player was Tony Gwynn of the San Diego Padres. Great individual, great player. So what that means is that when it comes to stats, especially in baseball, what we think is great as a whole is not necessarily the perspective of ourselves. It's the perspective of the individual that's playing the game. So if your perspective, the right perspective, you are bound to win if you know if you have the right perspective. During that game, Tony got on base with hits 4 times in 5 tries. But that not but that's not the norm for him. Usually he fails to get a hit 2 times out of every 3 attempts. Those results may not sound very encouraging, but if you know baseball, you recognize that Tony's ability to succeed consistently only 1 time in 3 tries have made him the greatest hitter of his generation. I want to repeat that. He says, but if you know baseball, you recognize that Tony's ability to succeed consistently only 1 time. It only takes 1 time out of 3 tries in baseball to make him the greatest hitter of his generation. And Tony recognized that to get his hit, he had to make a lot of outs. Have been a Tony Gwynn fan for more than a decade. When I lived in San Diego, I had season tickets for the Padres games. I saw him play in his first game there, and I've continued to follow his career closely. As he approached his hit 3,000, I knew I wanted to be at the game when he achieved the feat. On the day he had expected to achieve the milestone, I had just finished teaching leadership at a conference in Chicago, and I was to be speaking at Philadelphia the next day. I scrambled to change my plane tickets, then I called my son in law to Steve, who was going to be at the next conference with me, to invite him along. And each of us hopped on the plane to Montreal for the game. As I traveled, I knew our schedule would be tight, but I figured we would make it. When we arrived at the airport, everything looked great. But after getting off the plane, Steve got tied up with customs. With the clock ticking away, I was pretty sure that we were going to miss Tony's first at bat. And as sure enough, by the time we reached the stadium, he had already batted a hit number 3,000. How do you define failure? One of the greatest problems people have with failure is that they are too quick to judge isolated situations in their lives and label them as failures. Instead, they need to keep the bigger picture in mind. Our life is not just one situation, one problem, or even one glory. It's a lot of things that make up your whole life. So what he's saying, we can't just focus on just one aspect and a few items and a few problems. We have to be able to see the whole picture. When we realize that we're probably going to miss Tony's historic moment, do we give up? No. When we got to the stadium and knew he had missed it, did we turn around and go home? No. Did I think I had failed when I tried to buy a program, but learned that the vendors had already sold out of them? No. You see, we were just glad to be part of the celebration. And like Tony, who keeps hanging in there until he gets his hits. We were rewarded. Late in the game, when Tony hit a foul ball into the stands, I got it. A few weeks later, Tony signed the ball for me, and now I have souvenir from his 3,000 hit game. One of the greatest problems people have with failure is that they are too quick to judge isolated situation in their lives, and they label them as failures. Instead, they need to keep the bigger picture. There it is. We need to keep the bigger picture, like Tony Gwynn, who doesn't picture in mind. Someone like Tony Gwynn doesn't look at any out that he makes and think of failure. Failure. Let me highlight that for us. All right. So see, it's about the right perspective. It's about understanding. In order for us to win, we have to fail. In order for us, just like Tony, in order for him to get his 3,000 hits, he had to get a lot of outs. But that doesn't mean he failed. He was just had to go through the process, the right process, in order for him to get to where he wanted to get, uh, where he wanted to be, which was to get his 3,000 hits. His perspective leads to perseverance. His perseverance brings longevity, and his longevity gives him opportunities for success. And that's all we're looking for, aren't we? For that opportunity for us to win. Failure is not. Change your perspective on failure will help you to persevere and ultimately achieve your desires. So, how should you judge failure? Let's start by taking a look at 7 things failure is not. People think failure is avoidable. It's not. Everybody fails, errs, and makes mistakes. Now, let's be clear. Do we like it? No. We just got to understand that's going to happen. There's nothing we can do. We just got to deal with it. We have to be able to understand it so we can go beyond it. You have heard the saying, to err is human, to forgive divine. Alexander Pope wrote that more than 250 years ago, and he was only paraphrasing and saying that was common 2,000 years ago. During the time of the Romans, things today are the same as they were then. If you're a human being, you're going to make mistakes. You're probably familiar with Murphy's Law and the Peter Principle. Recently, I came across something called Rules of Being Human. I think the list describes well the state we're in as people. Rule number 1: you will learn lessons. That's great because failures is not failure. It's just a lesson to be learned. Rule number 2: there are no mistakes, only lessons. Same thing. Mistakes are not mistakes. It's just a process of learning. Rule number 3: a lesson is repeated until it's learned. Now, a lot of times what happens is that we make the same mistake over and over again. What we should do is understand the mistake, the error, and learn from it. That way, you don't have to make the same mistake over and over again. But it is a learning process. It's just a lesson. Rule number 4: if you don't learn the easy lesson, they get harder. We know about how life gets harder, and that's what it is, a bunch of little lessons throughout our lives. So let's learn from it. Let's continue to learn and be able to surpass those mistakes that we do make. You'll know you have learned a lesson when your actions change. Now, some of us are not willing to make the adjustments, and that's where we get in trouble. Being hard-headed is not going to get us anywhere. Looking at the mistakes and just wanting to continue to not learn from it, that's where we get in trouble because we'll go through life just making the same mistake over and over again. And rule number 5: you'll know you've learned a lesson when your actions change. You see, writer Norman Cousin was right when he said, the essence of man is imperfection. Know that you're going to make mistakes. That's awesome. This people, this is so awesome because these are people that in our eyes have everything figured out, right? They made it. They're great. They're awesome. Tony Gwynn and all these individuals that we're talking about and that you were reading about. If we didn't know any better, if we didn't know that they were so awesome, we thought their life, from our perspective, their life was perfect, and it's far from it. So the reason why we know about them is because they made mistakes and they were able to go and overcome them. That's the reason that we're so great. That's the reason we read them in books like this. People think failure, number two, people think failure is an event. It's not. It is not an event. It's not just a one time thing. Growing up, I thought that failure came in a moment. The best example I can think of is taking a test. If you got an F, it meant you failed. But I've come to realize that failure is a process. If you flunk a test, it doesn't mean you failed a one time. It's just a one time event. The F shows that you neglected the process leading up to that test. That's very interesting. We are taught, and that word is so harsh for us to fathom because throughout our whole life we hear our teachers. I remember when I was a young kid, if I brought an F at home, oh my God, that was horrible, right? So we fear failure because our past, but an F is not a failure. It's just we failed to follow the right process and we failed to learn that we needed to follow a process in order for us to have success. So if we can grasp that in our daily lives, then we're gonna be able to understand that just one situation is just not that is not it. It's more than that. Now, if we can grasp the process in order for us to learn from it, that way we can overcome the situation, then at that point in time, we don't get an F. We start getting C's and B's and A's in life. I mean, in 1997, I wrote a book called The Success Journey. It offers an overview on what it means to be successful. In it, I define success in these terms: knowing your purpose in life, growing to reach your potential, sowing seeds that benefit others. I like that too. He says, success is knowing your purpose in life. Have you sat and really thought about what are you here for? If you're a Christian like me, then you know God has made you for a purpose. You have a reason to be. God doesn't make any mistakes. God doesn't make he doesn't fail on what he does. He's perfect. So I know I have a purpose. Growing to reach your potential. Now it's your responsibility now to take those talents, those strengths that God has given you and work at it. I mean, you can't you can't think that you're gonna become great by just talent, pure talent. It just doesn't happen. And if you don't have any talent, it's even worse. But let's say you do have a talent. You still have to nurture that talent and you have to be able to understand your potential. But that potential is only going to be brought out, as you continue to grow. Sowing seeds that benefits others. Every talent, biblically speaking, and as my experience could tell me, everything you have has been given to you in order for you to benefit others, to bless others. So that's what John is talking about here. The thesis of the book is that success is not destination, not a place where you arrive one day. Instead, it is a journey you take, and whether you succeed comes from what you do day to day, In other words, success is a process. Failure works the same way. It's not some place you arrive. Just as success is not an event, neither a failure. It's how you deal with life along the way. No one can conclude that he has failed until he breathes his last breath. Until then, he's still in the process and jury is still out. Man, that's outstanding. That's outstanding. Not until you have your last breath. You still have time. I don't care if you have 80, if you're 80 years old. You still have time to progress. You still have time to make a difference. You still have time to teach others. You still have time to bless others. So get up and do something for humankind. Do something for society. Do something for your community. Start in your home. Be kind to your loved ones and start from there. People think failure is an objective. It's not. When you err, whether you miscalculated crucial figures, miss deadlines, blow a deal, make a poor choice concerning your children, or otherwise fumble a ball, what determines whether that action was a failure? Do you what determines whether that action was a failure? Do you look at the size of the problem it causes or the amount of money it costs you or your organization? It is determined by how much heat you have to take from your boss or by the criticism of your peers? No, failure isn't determined that way. The answer is that you are the only person who can really label what you a, fa- do a failure. It's subjective. Your perception of and response to your mistakes determine whether your actions are a failure or not. You determine if it's a failure or not. If you drop something or you make a mistake and you don't do anything about it, yeah, and you stay stuck on it and you dwell on it and you regret it for 5, 6, 10 years, of course, yeah, that's gonna feel like complete failure. But if you get up the next day and you are like, okay, you know, made a mistake, and just move on from it, and you learn from it, and you're better from it, that's not failure. That's actually success. Did you know that entrepreneurs almost never get their first business off the ground, or their second, or their third? According to Tulane University business professor Lisa Amos, the average for entrepreneur is 3.8 failures before they finally make it in business. I'll repeat that. The average for entrepreneurs is 3.8 failures. They finally make it in business. In other words, if you started a business and it didn't go well, do another one because you still have three and a half to go. Well, 3.8. 2.8 to go. Sorry, my math is off. But you know what I mean. You still have work to do. So try it again. And if you pass the four, that's okay. Continue to build, continue to work, continue to learn. That's what we're doing here, right? Oh, I've have my share of businesses that I thought they were the one and still not there yet, but we're working towards it. It's about continuing to build, and this is the reason why we're here. We're learning together. We're teaching ourselves to be better, and I hope this is helping you because it's definitely helping me. They recognize, well, they are not deterred by problems, mistakes, or errors. Why? Because they don't see setback as failures. They recognize that 3 steps forward and 2 steps back still equals 1 step forward. Whew, that's powerful. And as a result, they overcome the average and become achievers. People think failure is an enemy. It's not. Most people try to avoid failure like the plague. They're afraid of it. But it takes adversity to create success. NBA coach Rick Pitino states it even more strongly. Failure is good, he says. It's fertilizer. Everything I've learned about coaching, I've learned from making mistakes. Man, that's amazing. He says, failure is good. It's not bad, it's good. People who see failure as an enemy are captive to those who conquer it. Herbert V. Brocknow believes that a fellow who never makes a mistake takes his order from one who does. What? Oh man, that's awesome. The fellow who never makes a mistake takes his orders from one who does. So people that are scared are the ones that are working for somebody else. Those have decided to go out there and make things happen. Those are the Elon Musk of the world, the Jeff Bezos of the world, the Warren Buffetts of the world. Those are the ones that people are working for because those are the ones that risked it all and decided to make something happen. People think failure is irresistible. Oh, I skipped that one. Observe any high achievers, and you'll discover a person who doesn't see mistakes as the enemy. That's true in any endeavor. Musicologist, musicologist Eloise Restad emphasized that when we give ourselves permission to fail, we at the same time give ourselves permission to excel. Ooh, that's very powerful. We'll do one more. We'll do number 5 and we'll stop there. Last one. People think failure is irreversible. It's not. There's an old saying in Texas, it doesn't matter how much milk you spill as long as you don't lose your cow. In other words, mistakes are not irreversible. Keep everything in perspective. The problems come when you see only the spilled milk and not the bigger picture. You still have the cow. People who correctly see failure take it in stride. Mistakes don't make them want to give up. Success doesn't make them think that they are set up. Every event, whether good or bad, is one small step in the process of living. Or, as Tom Peterson acknowledges, if silly things were not done, intelligent things would never happen. Oh my God. Oh my God. If you're not excited about what we're reading, I don't know. I'm very excited. Listen, why not continue to try? Get up tomorrow. If you pray that God will illuminate your mind, I hope this is helping you. It's definitely helping me. This is amazing. Amazing information. Listen, failure is not final. It's only final if you make it final. Failure is not an enemy. It's only an enemy if you make it an enemy. Don't be scared of failure. Embrace it. Love it. Understand that it's part of who we are. It's part of who we are. So it is completely okay. It is completely okay if things doesn't work the way you want it to work the first time. It is definitely okay if you haven't tried anything. Get up and try something. It's definitely okay if you made a mistake and something happened, like he was saying. Mistakes happen, right? It's okay. Well, I want to end up with this. It's only 9:30, but I think oof, today was right to the gut. I'm excited. I'm motivated. I want to just go out and find something to do. Um, I am going to try harder. I am going to learn new things. I'm gonna put myself out there, and I'm hoping that God will bless the work that I do. And you're like me, and you're learning from this, and you're enjoying what we're doing here, please subscribe to the channel, share it with somebody. We're gonna be doing this 3 times a week. We're gonna be here Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, God willing. So share it with somebody. I'm pretty sure somebody's somebody needs it. I'm pretty sure there's a family member that is looking for some encouragement. I'm pretty sure you have a cousin or a brother or a sister or a mom or a dad that is thinking about building a business, but they're scared. Let them know. Carlos is here to help them. And again, if you want to join me, please reach out to me, 512-797-1442. Same thing, if you have anybody that's looking for a part-time, uh, an extra income, uh, just let me know. Reach out to me. Uh, Again, the email it's in the description. The phone number, 512-797-1442. If you have a family member that needs help with their finances, I'm willing. All my consultations are completely free. All we do is we do what is called a B dollar smart. We plug in their information into the system as a fintech, as a financial new technology. It's going to be amazing. In 5 minutes, we can let them know exactly where they're at financially, and we'll help them implement some of the structures that I have implemented for me and my wife. And again, we are not where we want to be, but we're definitely a lot farther than where we were a few years ago. Again, God bless. Love y'all. Thank you for the subscriptions already. Already so over 25, 26 views. You guys are amazing. Love you guys. You have a great night. God bless, and I'll see you on the next one.